Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film 11 Men and a Girl, or Maybe It's Love, from 1930. And this is continuing my quest to review all the films of William A. Wellman. This isn't one of Wellman's most loved, remembered, or available films, but it is Wellman's first film for Warner Brothers under his Warner Brothers contract after leaving Paramount Pictures after a dispute that they let him go early of because he didn't like the kind of pictures he was making at Paramount. And that started kind of a great period for him during the pre-code early talkie period where he was at Warner Brothers. That's a really celebrated period. It's probably the period that Wellman's most known for, but this film really does not reflect that. It's very much an early talkie film. A lot of the acting is awkward. Sometimes I'm not sure if setups are done so they can be near microphones, but then other setups look like they didn't need that. The cutting and the performances were very awkward, so I kind of imagine that bad mic placement and learning how to do early sound was somewhat of a problem. Although this was not Wellman's first talkie, it really does feel like a very awkward early talkie film. Even though if you look anything up about this film, it says it's starring Joan Bennett and Joe E. Brown and James Hall. The real stars of this film were called the All-American Football 11. College football movies were big in the 30s. I don't know. With that, you kind of get what this film was sold on. A college called Upton is having trouble with their football team, and the board of Upton says they're going to get rid of the president of Upton, George Irving, who is Joan Bennett's character's father, and then Joe E. Brown's character, who is on the football team and is like the star, I guess, even though they're a crappy football team. But Joe E. Brown is, but he's the comic relief. I guess the joke is that they're such a bad team that Joe E. Brown is like the best player. He comes up with an idea that Joan Bennett should flirt with all the best football players in the country and get them to come to Upton on the promise that they will get to date her. In the beginning of the film, she's wearing glasses and is very mousy, but then Joe E. Brown comes up with the idea that if we dress her up and have her flirt with all these guys, then suddenly her personality will completely change, of course, because feminism, and then get all those guys to Upton, which they successfully do, and suddenly Upton has one of the best teams in the country because of what she's done, and hopefully these guys will not realize exactly what she did to get them all there. This is a pre-code film, so there's kind of a lot of suggestion on how she got them to come to Upton, going behind pillars and things like that. I don't think it was more than kissing, but hey, I don't know. It's all left up to the imagination, so depending how perverted you are, I guess you could assume it was worse than that. And actually a lot of people bring up, and I've read in a couple reviews, that Clara Bow, who is known for her sexual promiscuousness at this time, was a big fan of the Southern California college football team. And the rumor was that she kind of like serviced all of them. That is not true at all. It's just a rumor. This film's fairly innocent the way it's playing on screen. Any implied nature is certainly just on the viewer. This is actually based on a play called The College Widow by George Ade. It had been made into a film several times, actually. This is a remake of Warner Brothers' own silent film from 1915, and they had made several versions of this. In fact, this was not the final version of it. Wellman directs it in a way that you could tell he could be a good comedy director. I don't really think comedy was one of his strong suits. He directs it in kind of a looser way that if you had a great comedian in this film, he could have really had a lot of fun with it. And Joe E. Brown, who most of you probably remember from Some Like It Hot and having that famous end line of Some Like It Hot, is alright in this film. I kind of recognized him, couldn't place it until I looked it up later. He kind of got on my nerves sometimes. I liked how he cheered Upton. Upton was a weird college call. It's done in such a slight kind of loose way that I think, Wellman understood what works about comedy direction. And this film is directed in the right way, but it just doesn't really work for it because of all the awkward acting and the awkward cutting. And then on top of all this early talkie acting, you have real life college football players who aren't obviously known for their acting. And apparently at the time, everyone thought the football scenes were really well done, which I disagree with. That just kind of adds to it, that even the professional actors are awkward, but then you have all these non-actors in the film also. It just kind of intensifies that awkwardness. It's kind of hard to get through at the beginning. It kind of wins me over, but a lot of times with Wellman, I've noticed is if he has a film that doesn't work in a particular genre, when he comes to it the next time, it seems like he has something to prove with that next film and has a better idea on how to do that film. And College Coach, to me, is his college football movie. I like that film a lot more than this. I think that works far better with his own personal style than this film does. One of the reasons it's called Maybe It's Love, I'm not sure where it's called Maybe It's Love. On TCM it's called 11 Men and a Girl, and I'm not exactly sure in what territories or countries or states it was called Maybe It's Love. But apparently the song Maybe It's Love, which is featured in this film, was the best-selling song of 1930. The way films were released then were a lot different than they are now. They would sometimes play forever, going through different states and playing in New York first a lot of the times, and sometimes not, sometimes playing in Detroit or another city first. It might have been called 11 Men and a Girl, and then they decided, even though it's based on a play called The College Widow, they decided to change it to Maybe It's Love when they realized Maybe It's Love was such a hit song. And originally, supposedly, I keep reading that this was made as a musical, but audiences really weren't into musicals that much in the autumn of 1930, so they cut a lot of that out. The film's so loose, I mean, you could probably theoretically do that. All the songs in here are awkwardly put in here, but this film's fairly awkward anyway, so who knows about that one. A lot of people suggest that there is more of a musical version of this film that was released outside of the US, because US audiences were the ones who were sick of musicals and not the rest of the world. I don't really know how true that even is. Maybe they just cut it down and put it back in. Studios were kind of known for releasing several different versions of movies then in various different languages or territories or what have you. So it's plausible, but I don't know if it's true. And it's not like the songs really worked anyway. They might have just cut them out because they're like, hey, this doesn't exactly work. With this film, you have Joan Bennett, who's early in her career, before she would really break out. It's not really a star performance. She's certainly very beautiful. I kind of get why all these guys would go to a school for her, but it's not a role where she'll be a star someday. It was a little ways away from that, and a lot of people have brought out that she is just sleepwalking through all these until she has a real breakout role. A lot of the people in this film aren't really at their best. It's kind of more notable for me as someone who's reviewing all these Wellman films for being Wellman's first Warner Brothers film and his first Warner's assignment picture. And the films right after this are some of his best pre-code films, like Other Men's Women, The Public Enemy, Night Nurse. He feels a little more into those films. Those films seem to be something like he's a lot better at. Other Men's Women, which is also kind of an early talkie, works very much with that style. Same with Public Enemy. And in this, it just looks like a dirtier, worse made film. With studio directors, there's a lot of films they had to do that were assignment pictures. And this is one of William Wellman's that I feel like he did it. He tried to do the best he could with it. Sometimes he would do interesting things with the camera, like a pan over this fountain and the opening kind of tracking shot where they're leaving the football stadium. And he definitely tried to do something with it. I don't think there's really much he could have done to make this even better than it really was. And what it wasn't really that good. It makes me happy I saw College Coach. It makes me appreciate that film more. And I think that's one thing about a movie in a certain genre that you like and that's different in that genre. It makes you appreciate it more for what it did. And I think that's what 11 Men and a Girl, or Maybe It's Love, really did for me, is it made me go, wow, College Coach was a lot better. This is an era where he really tried with his assignment pictures. He really did try to make the best of them, but I don't think this is one that made the best of him or Joan Bennett or Joey Brown or anybody in it, despite it being a major hit at the time and actually written as an alias by Daryl F. Zanuck, Mark Canfield. It's just kind of a comedy that doesn't really work because of its awkwardness in how the early talkies films were produced. I think if this had been made a couple of years later, probably would have been a lot better, but not really that much better. I don't really get the infatuation with this story. It's kind of like, okay, she seduces all these guys to play on this football team, and then of course they find out inevitably. It's just really not that interesting of a story. Wellman certainly liked to have a lot of guys fight over one girl. That's certainly a subject matter that he was very good at. Or look at his next film, Other Men's Women, or With Wings before this. Maybe he had too many guys in this one. A typically awkward early talkie film has a place because it's early in a lot of people's careers, but it's not a highlight and shows why they became great. It's just a step for them that they moved past, and frankly, I think after one viewing, I will move past it as well. So if you have seen Maybe It's Love or 11 Men and a Girl and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.